them. One is be proud of the work we're doing, celebrate our wins, tell it to the world, tell them our successes. Secondly, be honest. That means evaluate what we're doing. Use those numbers as data points to help us do a better job. Evaluation's good. Reach out to the Special Court Resource Center. Let them come in and do some evaluations. Find some other drug court professionals that you know and have them come in and do evaluation. AllRise has opportunities as well. Be a strong team. So be proud, be honest, be a strong team. It's not just the judge, as us judges sometimes think it is. It's the entire team that makes these specialty courts successful. Everybody has their roles, and we need to continue to make sure you have the entire, all the tools in your tool belt by having all the different roles involved in the process. And lastly, just be your best. Every day, strive to make it better.
The PodTASC is back. A lot has happened recently with the Texas Association of Specialty Courts, also known as TASC, TASC. We wrapped up our annual training conference in March with a record number of attendees. We also have a few new members on the TASC board, and a big change came with our incoming president, Judge Larry Phillips of Grayson County. Judge Phillips has extensive experience working with the intersection of mental health and the justice system, and with the specialty court program specifically. He joins us today to talk more about this work and how the work that each of us does can make a big impact. I'm your host, Liz Wiggins, and I currently volunteer with the TASC board as the communications director. Join me for a talk with Judge Phillips today. But before we get started, here's another reminder that you can help us grow the show by sharing this episode with someone you know. And as always, if you have any feedback or questions, send an email to the podtask@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us, Judge Phillips. I'd like to get started with you just giving your name, your current role, and the website that people can go to learn more about you.
Well, I'm Judge Larry Phillips. I'm a district judge up in Grayson County, which is north of Dallas. This is my 7th year as a judge, and I've had the wonderful pleasure of being a recovery court judge here the entire time that I've been a judge. And it's one of the most meaningful works that I've done in my life. And I'm so proud of this association, specialty courts, and really proud of the accomplishments that the association's had and the future accomplishments we're going to have that will really continue to make us the cutting edge on recovery in the nation.
And what website can they go to?
So I really don't have a website as a judge. If you go to the Grayson County webpage, it will have an area for the courts and that kind of stuff where you can contact me if anybody wants to. And I'd love to talk to anybody about challenges they're having or the successes that they're having in their respective courts.
Thank you so much, Judge Phillips. I'd like to talk a little bit about your past experiences and what led you to the role you're in now. Can you share a little bit about that?
I've been an attorney over 35 years now. And throughout that time, I did a lot of work, court appointment type things and other criminal defense. I did some prosecution, a whole lot of civil law, just a varied career. And about 20-something years ago, I ran for the Texas legislature, and I spent 8 sessions as a state representative for my community up here. When I knew it was time for me to retire and say I need to exit the political scene, it just happened that this judicial bench came open. And what was most attractive about it, to be honest, is that the judge that had this bench for many years was an early pioneer in our state with specialty courts. And we have an older program. And I was so excited. I would smile when I would think about the opportunity to come and be a part of that program and lead that program or be a leader with the team in that program. That was a huge factor in me deciding to be a judge and not just go back into practicing law.
I didn't know that about you. I've known you for a couple of years now, and I did not realize that was one of your biggest motivators for seeking the judicial bench after your time at the legislature. So that's actually fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit about why these types of programs are important to you?
Well, they're successful. I mean, that's just the truth. And when you're involved with them and you see the successes, it is it's pretty awesome. Compared to those that just say, okay, I don't really want treatment. I'd rather go get my jail time done or go get my whatever done. They're going to come back. But this is an opportunity this is one of the most effective ways to help people deal with their addiction, deal with their mental health challenges, and succeed so that they can get out of the cycle of crime and being back in the legal system. And it works. And all you got to do is look across the state and look across the nation at all the successful programs. And so I'm a real believer in it. Again, they're just a very successful model to deal with people struggling with addiction and having mental health issues and other issues that are keeping them from living the lives that they need to and being trapped in the criminal system.
I agree with you about that. I kind of want to dive in just a little bit into your current role. I'd love the audience to get to know a little bit more about exactly what it is that you do. Can you specify the current bench that you're on now?
Yeah, so I'm in the 59th District Bench in Grayson County. As I said, that's north of Dallas, where the Red River is Oklahoma, right north of us. It's what we call a general jurisdiction bench. So I have family law jurisdiction, I have juvenile jurisdiction, adult felony jurisdiction, and I have obviously criminal jurisdiction and civil cases. And so we keep really busy doing a varied type of cases that we hear every day. And I lead the Grayson County Star Recovery Court, and that court is for those that are post-adjudication. They've already had their cases resolved, and it's about an 18-month program. And we, as a program should, I meet with them twice a month. And obviously there's a lot of stuff that happens in between that is really where I think the real work takes place with all the supporting cast that we have. I've got a great team. They're dedicated. They love what they're doing. They're passionate about it. And again, they're helping to transform our lives. That's what I'm doing in this role. Have also just become a commissioner of the Judicial Commission on Mental Health, who are very supportive of our mental health courts. And then I've been involved in helping establish a local mental health leadership group here in our local community. And that's been pretty exciting, too, to see changes locally in that area.
I remember that now. Do you know the name of that organization offhand?
It's called the Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership, TBHLT, Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership Team, TBLHT. And we have a website. We have an annual conference coming up in April. It's a great conference where we try to bring people to educate them about mental health, to bring awareness, to train. People get CEUs for their different careers. And it's a really special time for our community to come together. And it's helping us break down those silos. And that's really why we did the leadership team, to bring in all of the leaders we have, from our superintendents to college presidents to the courts, sheriff, police chiefs, our mental health authority, local mental health authorities, leadership, you name it, our hospitals here, just a lot of the leadership in all these areas. But we're bringing them together to where we have to meet and discuss these things. And when you get together and you start talking about options of how to be more successful in your area, and you don't know what else, somebody's doing something similar, well, let's get together and join, and that synergy happens in that situation. So I'm really excited about that. Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership Team, I was really honored. They named an award after my mom, who's Patsy Alexius. My mom was a school counselor her career, and she began being involved with Texas Counseling Association and started working through them and got involved with their legislative works. And she and her good friend and many others went to the legislature. So I was exposed to the legislature early on, would go to the legislature for several sessions in order to get the Licensed Professional Counseling Act passed. So we have LPCs now because of their hard work. And my mom has license number 2, and her friend Bonnie has license number 1, and they were successful because they worked hard and they figured out how to do this legislation thing and how to communicate with the legislature, and just really proud. So they named the award the Patsy Award after her in honor of her legacy. And I was really, really touched by that.
That's
and
pretty
in
amazing,
thinking,
Judge Phillips. I have to say that. I'm sorry. That's pretty exciting and amazing. And the fact that your mom kind of set such a great example for you and so early on, and it kind of comes full circle here, and now the work you're doing, and she's being honored for all the foundation, that she built for so many people. I mean, I don't know about you, but younger, I would have been like, I'm not really sure I would have realized the impact she was going to have earlier on.
yeah,
But to now get to this point, I bet it's like looking at that contrast of where that journey started to now is just got to be so significant of an impact. What an amazing thing.
yeah, she's a great example of dedication, hard work, and compassion, doing the right thing, doing what you're supposed to do, thinking about others, putting them before you, but also having a vision and a direction. She was a great leader and a role model for me. And, so many of us have been blessed by, whether it's moms or others in our lives that have been the leaders for us or mentors. But she was a great example. And again, I got the experience of the world with them, going down the legislature, seeing them meet with legislatures, seeing them bring cinnamon rolls to them and having them bake them in our home, to take down there. All that kind of stuff made a big difference. And because of that work, we have the licensed professional counselor. They have standards, ethics, and things that make them do a better job. And those were all the things that they were trying to build on. And it took a few sessions for them to get that legislation passed. And so the thing for me is I got to experience as a child going up to the legislature and seeing all of that happen and getting some insight and understanding to it, so that many years later, when I became a state rep, I knew a little bit, at least some of the ideas, and it worked, but it always made me appreciate those that are working for associations like ours, that are giving up their time and volunteering to go down to the legislature and say, here is something that will help Texans have a better life. And having licensed professional counselor, where we have more opportunity for people to get counseling for their mental health issues, their struggles. Along with that, when you create something like that, you're not just creating a title or a profession. What you're creating is a lot of responsibilities, oversight, ethics. And so you have to plan and think through, what do we want these counselors, what do we want them to look like? What do we want their practice to look like? And so that's very exciting. And I also want to talk about, like, our association, Texas Association of Specialty Courts. We've had a very good, successful legislative history these last few years. And I've got to applaud another one of my heroes in life, just like my mom's a hero in my life, and that's Judge Paul White from Lufkin, who championed, as an association member and a board member for Texas Association of Specialty Courts, championed getting us funding, permanent, long-term, consistent funding source for specialty courts.
I think that's a huge, huge thing. And the fact that TASC has been able to do that. I was talking with Aaron Morgan, the outgoing president, and Amber Gregory with the Specialty Court Resource Center. And we were just discussing about the history about TASC, and starting off as just more of an educational and more of an awareness organization. And it's really transitioned into having these big impacts, right, statewide. I love the story about your mom, because all the things that she did, and like I said, it just feels like it's just coming full circle, and your story as a part of this is just very full circle. And I can see now why you're involved in this work. I want to go back to about the Star Recovery Court. I want to ask you, did that court exist when you got on the bench? Was that the judge who had started it, the one that you mentioned earlier?
Yes, that was a specialty court, and he's a former past president of TASC as well. I'm the incoming president. I don't know if we've discussed that, but he was a previous president of TASC, and they've just had such a great career here. And we have such a great team. There's a great team in place when I got here, and we're continuing to grow the team. And as I've said before, it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done is this. And as I told you, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to run for this bench.
You said that the program length is about 18 months and it's post-adjudication, right?
Yeah, ours post-adjudication, and there's some that will go to that they really need to go to an inpatient. And so there's some facilities, men's and women's facilities that we like for them to go to.
So participants who are in your program, they can do inpatient, some of the treatment that they might get includes inpatient treatment programming. Do some of the participants qualify for just like outpatient or group counseling type of treatment as well?
So it really depends on where they are. And so we have our local mental health provider that will provide different types of counseling to them. But we have within our own team, we have therapists that assist. They're meeting with our local counselors or our program counselors. They're having group counseling within that. And so it's a pretty extensive, we keep them very busy. It's a pretty extensive program, and we have the counseling within our team for the focus on the addiction recovery. There are those that might have some mental health issues that we will partner with our local mental health authority and others to help work on those issues. It's just like maybe it's a transportation issue, maybe it's an employment issue. We have to deal with it. Those are a lot of struggles that we have with these group members or program members that we have to work on.
That's interesting that you mentioned about the therapists on your team. What other roles are represented on the team that you work with?
I think, and that's one of the challenges I'm going to challenge everybody that's in specialty courts to make sure they have that well-rounded team, to make sure they have all of the players involved, a defense attorney, prosecutors, the law enforcement. And we've missed our law enforcement component for a little while, and we went out and recruited to get another component. The counseling, our local mental health authority, our probation. We have a retired professor who understands how different substances affect your brain and your behavior. So we have that specialist who's been involved with the team probably from the beginning, over 20 years. And so we have, had that diverse group. And I think it takes that diverse group to be successful. And everybody's role is important. And it's not just the judge. And that's the thing that I think most of us judges understand. We really appreciate the rest of our team's very difficult work. Because I said before, most of the work happens in between those every other week that I get a chance to visit with them.
That makes sense. And I like that you have a professor and you have a therapist. Those are some unique representatives to have on your team. And I'm sure that really helps. I would think that it really helps when you can have such a diverse group of people who are doing staffings and actually reviewing the situations and making decisions or recommendations for somebody's treatment or future. It's very helpful to have that diverse perspective of the situation.
Yeah, and one of the things to think about is, especially our defense attorneys, team members, it's so important that one of the main things we have to, as a team, always realize is that the defendants or the participants, they have due process rights. The Constitution gives them rights that we have to protect, and we have to make sure that we allow them to exercise, that they understand that those rights, because we have to make a lot of tough decisions in these processes, and we have to make sure that we respect those rights in our courts, and that we educate the participants on their rights, and make sure they have the defense attorneys available in those situations. That it's a lot of teamwork, a lot of communication, but at the end of the day, the Constitution says we respect their constitutional rights.
I appreciate that you've actually brought that up. That's not talked about probably enough, although I know that, everybody that we've talked to on the show and definitely the people associated with our association, definitely they care about those things, but it definitely is not, it's just not talked about enough. We just don't bring it up enough, I think, when it comes to specialty courts, because we're so focused on treatment and stuff like that. And I'm not sure that everybody who's considering creating a court may not realize that that still is a very important piece of the puzzle that has to be considered.
And it's different, even if you're pre-adjudication courts, that's before they've been adjudicated, or post, as far as the rights and responsibilities. That's why you have to be educated on it and attend conferences like TASCs or AllRise or other training that's available. You talked about the team members. It's the same team members that lead the Texas Association of Specialty Courts. We have currently, as you said, our outgoing president, she's a probation in the probation world. The last president was a prosecutor, juvenile prosecutor. We've had a defense attorney before that. And so I'll be a judge this year. That's just as the presidents, but all the different board members make up all of these different teams. And that's why this association is really great, because it helps all of us together, knowing how can we make our specialty courts better in the state, and coming together as a diverse team, just like we do every week as a specialty court. We're able to do a better job making our courts the best in the nation.
Definitely agree with that. What are some of the best practices that are implemented in your program that you could share with the audience?
If we're not following the best practices, we really get challenges. I would say, in thinking about that, is we really have to make sure that we have the right people in the program, that they really are high risk, high needs. That's something that's really important. Following in thinking about the way that we monitor, we drug test. I think about my team members. They show up on Saturdays to do what we call colors, which is you got to come in and give a test, right? And so they miss their weekends to make sure that our program's successful, because that's part of the best practices. You've got to do that testing. And without that testing, you can't hold everybody accountable. Those are the type of things that, we really work to utilize in the program, trying to be thoughtful in the way that we do our rewards or our sanctions, and following the best practices there. The best of having inclusion, making sure that we're identifying not only on our team members to be included, but the participants. We're making sure that there's no reason that every person that would fit this program, that there's no barriers to them based upon their backgrounds, their ethnicity, or anything else. Those are things, the best practices we have to work on. And we follow those best practices and work to try to instill those.
Did you know that Mental Health Awareness Month was established in 1949? The purpose was to increase awareness of the importance of mental health and wellness in the lives of Americans, and also to celebrate recovery from mental illness. For more than 20 years, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, otherwise known as SAMHSA, has recognized Mental Health Awareness Month every May to increase awareness about the vital role mental health plays in our overall health and well-being. SAMHSA also provides resources and information to support individuals and communities who may need mental health support. One resource is SAMHSA's 2024 Mental Health Awareness Toolkit. The toolkit is designed to make it easier for you to spread awareness by sharing materials with your audience and across your social media channels. Some of the materials are even customizable. Find the direct link to the toolkit in the show notes to learn more on SAMHSA's website. So Grayson County has actually had a sequential intercept model mapping a couple years ago, within the last couple years, right? And I believe the Judicial Commission on Mental Health came out and coordinated that or facilitated that for the county. Can you share a little bit about how doing, a review of your county resources can help with specialty court programs?
You bet. I think it was a great program. It was a great opportunity for us to do the SIM mapping, sequential intercept model mapping, and at this last in Houston, this last AllRise, we started hearing them talk quite a bit about that. It was very helpful for us, and I think any community needs to make sure that they go through this. We're going to have one for our juvenile world later this next year. So it's just focused on juvenile population. It helps us, again, it helps us to understand what resources we have in the community where we have shortfalls. It helps bring us together so we're not in silos, as I discussed earlier. It's helped our Texoma Behavioral Health Leadership Team do a better job. And we're focused on certain things. We're focused on a diversion center. We're focused on trying to get people that have mental health issues within our criminal justice system to try to keep them from coming into it, or try to at least try to get them out of that system to where they won't come back. Again, SIM mapping, as it's called, is something that a community can use to make their specialty courts better, but to try to make their entire mental health community or response better.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think before we go further, I'll just give a shout out to the JCMH who provides these at no cost to the communities. For select communities, obviously, they don't have unlimited resources to do that. But so does, I believe, the Behavioral Health Technical Assistance Center.
It's out of the Health and Human Services Commission that has this. They do amazing work as well. We're so fortunate to have JCMH and HHSC working in these areas to help our communities do a better job with those struggling with mental health issues or IDD, intellectual developmental disabilities as well.
I agree. And the thing about the mapping, it really is ideal to bring community members, community leaders together to, like you said, break down those silos and kind of identify the resources that exist and what doesn't exist, and how maybe some of those gaps can be addressed in some way when working together in groups, and kind of build a task force. Sometimes I've seen some of the communities do to address some of those bigger gaps. I think that's pretty exciting, and I'm glad that your community was able to have one of those done as well. I do want to just touch on real quick about other specialty courts that you have in Grayson County. Can you just share a little bit about what you've seen popping up in your legal community as far as specialty courts and programs that are addressing some of these treatment needs in the justice system?
So we have two other specialty courts at this time, and they're both juvenile focused. One is like a pre-adjudication, so it's trying to catch them early on and getting them in that program. And that's the newest one. We have a new judge that's doing that. He had debated to try to start a DWI only court, but at this time, this was a need. He felt like this would be a great area for him. And so we're excited to see how that goes and how that continues to grow. The other is a more traditional juvenile specialty court for those that it's not called post-adjudication because we don't, it's the young people have been found delinquent that are in need of supervision. So they'd be on juvenile probation. This is the court for them. And it's been around for several years and have a long-term judge that just does a great job with it. We had a CPS court that was very successful, but we just didn't have as much. We just didn't have enough. We had a lot of changeover at the department and the CPS department. We had a lot of changeover there, and we didn't have the census or the numbers in the past. So that unfortunately that one is not available right now, but it was very successful. And if your community doesn't have one, it's something they should really, if they're having a lot of removals, they need to be considering. Lastly, we are in the process of starting a mental health specialty court for felon and for misdemeanor. And so we're in the process of trying to develop those teams, come up with a memorandum of understanding of all the people involved, and then we'll be trying to get some funding for it.
That's exciting. And in fact, do I remember correctly that you or somebody in the county has a mental health docket, right? That's not quite a specialty court yet, but kind of a beginner part of that. Go ahead.
Right. And so we do a couple things. One is what we've really learned through all this work with HHSC and Judicial Mental Health Commission is this idea of, can we help people that are found not competent? So they're just sitting in jail till they go to the state hospital, which our wait times could be 1 to 2 years before they can even get there. What can we do in jail for jail-based competency restoration to help them here? To make sure that we identify folks that come in quicker, so that if we can get the medications, so then maybe they don't deteriorate to where they become not competent. And so we're working on that program. And so anybody that's found non-competent or put on a special docket that I have, where we monitor them through the whole journey of going to the state hospital and back. We also have started through all of this jail-based competency restoration. And we've got our first person that's just gone through that. And we think there's a good chance that they'll be found not competent. Instead of spending a year to 2 years in jail waiting to go to the state hospital, we're talking about really a 90-day window here that we've been able through the counseling, medication, and training to get her to where she can get rid of her case and get on with life.
I'm glad you brought up that timeline, the distinction with that timeline, because I think, we all hear this through all these programs, right? Is the sooner we can divert somebody to treatment, the better it is, not just for the individual, but the community as a whole, right? And that definitely, I think, plays a huge role with mental health as well as substance abuse issues. It seems that I haven't really talked about all the reasons why that's important. Can you share a little bit about the importance of the earlier that somebody, why diversion and all of these early interventions are important and how they can impact the community?
Well, exactly. So if we can get people back on the track to being productive citizens and not having to just be warehoused in jails, right? Because they're not getting treatment. Early diversion is really important. One, it saves tax dollars resources so that people aren't housed in jail and sit there without getting treatment. It's safer. If they're in crisis, they don't need to be in jail. They need to be receiving treatment. And at the end of the day, the more we can focus on having people succeed in the community and not coming in and out of the jail system, it's safer for the community. It's less resources on the community, but it takes resources to do those things necessary to do that early diversion. There are a lot of great reasons besides just, the most important is just helping that individual succeed.
I'm glad you brought up the community resources, because that's actually my next question, which is just, are there any community resources that are highly utilized for the specialty court programs in Grayson County?
Well, we have several counseling types of groups, nonprofits, from our Salvation Army. We have some halfway houses for some of our younger folks. We have food banks. We have treatment options, separate and apart from what's going on in our program itself. We have Oxford houses here for people that's sober living, job opportunities, working with Goodwill. They're just taking advantage of our community resources. We don't have great transportation resources. We tried in the past. We've had more services. They've had some issues. They had to cut back. Heck, we go out and get folks to buy bicycles for some of our folks that can't drive and don't have anybody drive them around. I mean, we'll do whatever it takes to try to make them successful through our programs.
Is transportation one of those challenges that impacts the participation in the programs then? Transportation
and housing are two huge things, because most of some of the housing that they can afford, it's not a good setting. In fact, I had this yesterday in my court, and he says he needs to find another place. That's what I said. Let's see if we can figure out another place of working, because sure enough, somebody down the way came over and they were users, and he messed up, right? And he needs to be in a place that is sober, where he's not going to be challenged like that. And it's tough. He's got a child he's raising. So It makes it even harder.
That does make it hard, especially when the options in front of you are very limited to a lot of temptation. That's hard. That's hard for anybody who's struggling with those challenges to be exposed to those temptations. And nobody's perfect. And people who truly are wanting to succeed and I know stay sober, it's a lifelong journey of struggling. And so removing those temptations are a huge part of success. And it's difficult if your housing options are limited to not removing those
Right.
temptations, right? And in fact, so I wanted to talk about some of the unique challenges of being in a rural community because, with some of these bigger communities, there are a lot of options. There's still always more need than what exists. But I feel like being in a more rural community, you definitely see a different set of challenges than what bigger cities and stuff might be facing. Can you share a little bit about that unique issue?
There are some distinct challenges in the rural area. Transportation, as I said a while ago, is one of the real challenges because we don't have mass transit opportunities like they do in bigger cities. We don't have bus routes and those kind of things. We don't even have a whole lot of Uber drivers up here. Even if you wanted to take advantage of that, if you were able to do that, that's a real challenge. We really compete with the Metroplex because it's near us. We compete with them for jobs. And so a lot of our mental health providers that we wish would stay here, they can make more money down closer to Dallas. Those kind of having the providers is a struggle. And then the housing opportunities are a struggle as well. So, that's a difference. Now, I will say that for those folks that are from our community, probably our smaller community lends to more community support of those individuals, maybe more involved with our religious communities involved with these different programs and helping people succeed. Close family dynamics because they've been here for many generations, and so they help each other. So there's some positives that come from it being more rural, but there are definitely those challenges.
I agree. Thank you for sharing that. You've in the past, as part of your time with the Texas Association of Specialty Courts, you've been involved with the legislature committee, I think it was in the past, right? And working on those types of projects, you're involved with the local behavioral health leadership team and putting on the conference for that and really helping the community break down those silos and talk about mental health and the resources needed. And you've also been involved with the Judicial Commission on Mental Health, and now you're a commissioner with their organization. You've done a lot of these things that allow you to really know a lot of information, frankly, statewide and nationally as well, to kind of identify trends and identify challenges to specialty court programs, but also the challenges for the participants who are involved in these type of specialty court programs. Based off of just this vast experience that you have, can you share a little bit just about your thoughts about funding and data and the importance of these two things when it comes to specialty courts, just in general? Just what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah. So with the hard work, as I said before, talked about Judge White's work and the legislative committee and showing up and testifying at the legislature and seeing a new sustainable funding source passed. That's the kind of things that the message we have with specialty court success helped us be successful in doing that. TASC, the association, did a great job working on legislation, and it's because of the success of the courts and the communities and going to our representatives and saying, hey, this is what's going on. These are great values for taxpayer dollars to see change lives. And in thinking about data and legislation or funding, data is really important so we can really prove what we know, that we're successful. Historically, though, in Texas, we have not done a very good job at the state level helping to accumulate that data. And unless the courts are specifically funded by the governor's grants program, which is where most of the funding is and is growing, there are a lot of specialty courts like mine who is no longer funded with the CJD grant program. It was from 2005 until 2014. And now ours is funded through our probation department. We call it the TDCJ-CJAD funding. Having data and showing the success of what we're doing will help us get more funding, and it will help us get more grants at the federal level and through the legislature. And we have not done a good job of that as a state. And I will tell you, through the work of TASC and others, the Office of Court Administration is going to have specific individuals to be focused on our courts. And that's huge. It's going to be greatly helpful to help us working on and getting a data for the state level, not just our individual courts. And our individual courts should be mining their own data, watching what they're doing in their to evaluate to make sure that they're doing a good job in their program. So it helps our programs when we focus on the data and we pay attention to the numbers, but it also is going to help us as a state get more federal funding as well. Not only do we have more resources at the Office of Court Administration coming up, we also have 2 more hires at the Specialty Court Resource Center, which is a great help and a great resource for our courts.
I completely forgot that there were those positions available with the Specialty Court Resource Center, because that's been almost like a one-person show essentially for quite a while.
We got to all say Amber Gregory's just done an outstanding job as a leader, the executive director of the association, and her job with CMET at Sam Houston. Her getting that support is going to help them do better valuations and provide us better resources. And that came from the governor's, the governor's grants. We appreciate the governor's office and their support of our specialty courts.
I want to talk a little bit just about the future. Do you have any future plans for Star Recovery Court or in Grayson County that you can share with us for any of the specialty court programs? Is there any future plans about that you'd like to share? We
want to continue to evaluate what we're doing and transforming. And so we do that after we go to our conferences. We get together as a team, and we'll always want to do that next step and to see success. But at the same time, if your court's following those best practices, doing what they're supposed to, there's going to be success. The recipe works. So don't change your recipe unless you really need to, right? Sometimes the ingredients need to be changed because they get stale or whatever. And so sometimes the participants involved on the team may need to be changed for life changes or whatever reason. But with our recovery court, what I don't want to do is mess up a good thing that's been going on since 2005. We have to continue to innovate, continue to make sure we're following the best practices. But my focus over the next 12 months really is going to be in getting our mental health courts established, our both misdemeanor and felony courts, and really excited about that opportunity. Besides what I'm going to be doing over the next 12 months, which is as incoming president of the association, TASC to challenge us to reach those goals that we need to go to the next. And we'll have a board meeting coming up, and at that board meeting, we're going to discuss these things. And we're going to work out what are our goals. We've seen how the emergence of our involvement with the legislative process has brought some great successes. We're now focusing on also more education and being at conferences, providing a program. So that's something we're looking at working on more. And then we have this great talent that's helped us do podcasts and to revamp our website and webpage. Now that's the host of this podcast, for everybody to know. But you've done a fantastic job in challenging us to the next level of communication, of just informing everyone about the great work that specialty courts are doing in Texas. On behalf of the association, Liz, thanks.
Oh, no, thank you. I was just going to say, but you guys really are doing amazing work. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that message and help people understand and know that the work that you guys are doing and you have been doing for years. I mean, just years, which is the stuff that we were talking about earlier today, just coming full circle is just such a huge impact. And I just think sometimes that people, whether they take it for granted or they just really don't know the work that you're doing. So you're welcome, but also just thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this story. Like, this is so important for people to understand the work that's happening here.
So our church has what we call small groups, and we trade off where we host it. And it's just some other couples our age with same struggles in life and everything else. And we come together and have coffee and dessert and share through our faith's journey. And they talked about last night, and oftentimes I share because we do that on Mondays, and that's when we have recovery court. And I share some of the amazing testimonies that I hear. And one of them last night was explaining to somebody else in the community, this is what they're doing. It's pretty amazing. And that's a great opportunity for us to share what we're doing. But she said, this one story you told was about Thanksgiving. Well, after Thanksgiving, we have specialty court. And unfortunately, I'm in a murder trial, and I am not able to spend the time I normally do in our recovery court session. And so I took a break from the jury trial, told the jurors, if you'll give me a few minutes, I've got a real important job to do. I need to go talk to them, explain why I'm not there, number one, and two, to spend a few minutes with them. And I said, I can't be here, but I want to have everybody give a few words about how their Thanksgiving went. We know holidays are big struggles for folks that have addiction issues for a myriad of reasons.
Absolutely.
What I talked to the court is I asked them about Thanksgiving, how their Thanksgiving go. I just wanted to connect with them. And I started with the chief of our adult probation. I said, you start off. And he shared about this was the first Thanksgiving that his dad hadn't been around because he had died a few months ago before that. So he shared about that. And then other people shared, and the counselors, everybody shared, and the participants shared of the program. And one lady said, Judge, this was the best Thanksgiving I've ever had. I haven't been to Thanksgiving the last couple of years because I've been in jail or in treatment. And so I wasn't there. She said, Judge, it was great. She said, I cooked, I cleaned, I was a part of it, and my family was so happy I was there. I didn't cause any fights. I didn't cause anything, people to be upset. I didn't storm off and leave. It's the best Thanksgiving I ever had. And she was so thankful for not just our program, but the hard work that had been given to her. The next guy says, Judge, it's been 4 years since I've not been incarcerated on Thanksgiving. And so those are the awesome things when we see changed lives. The person that says, I now get to go to my grandmother's house and I can go alone because I was barred from that before because nobody trusted me. I get to talk to my grandkids now. I wasn't allowed. My children wouldn't let me see my grandkids. I get to talk to my kids now. I get to have my kids come over. I get to have weekends with my kids. All of this great stuff. I get to have a successful job and career. That's the story we need to tell.
I completely agree with you, Judge Phillips. This is the stuff that doesn't, I said before, I think to Rosie, it doesn't show up in data the same way. I mean, it probably has the story somewhere in the data if you're a data nerd and know how to look at all that, I'm sure. But these aren't the things that people can always just see by looking at a file or looking at some numbers to understand how these courts really are truly successful and how they're impacting people's lives, and not just individual lives, but truly all the lives that come into contact with that individual.
You're exactly right. The transformation is incredible.
And relationships, community relationships, these things matter. This is where if it's not your family and you think, oh, it's not going to impact me, what does this have to do with me? But the truth is, this is your community. These people are a part of your community. And when their relationships are healthy and they're good and they are productive members of society, it actually does impact you. It impacts you. It impacts your family, the people you care about. Yeah. It matters. It truly, truly matters. And so I hope that people hear that.
We have 3 courts like mine, and one of our judges was gone, and they said, could you do could you cover an adoption for him? Well, adoptions are the coolest thing judges get to do, right? And so I said, you bet. And I go in there and I'm like, I think I know that lady over there. And I don't know the couple adopting. And then I realized a young lady that come through our program was pregnant, became pregnant, and succeeded in the program and delivered a beautiful baby, drug-free. And
that
it
is
was
great.
Isn't that a great story? The sad thing is she fell back into addiction and she lost her life, which we're going to see more and more with fentanyl. She lost her life. It was so sad. But the lady I recognized was her mother. So it was a grandbaby's mother. And she was there because when the mom had died, she got custody. But that day in that court for the adoption, that grandmother was so thankful her grandbaby was clean and that her mom had a chance to be in the program and deliver a healthy baby without any addiction or any problems. And that couple and she said, Judge, these are great people. They're great. They'll be great parents. She says, Judge, they don't even cuss. That's how good they are. And so I wasn't supposed to be in the court that day, but yet it just worked out because the other judge wasn't here that I got to be there and got to see what happens when we have some successes. And we have those sad times like that she lost her life. I use her as an example a lot in our program. And it still grieves me that she lost. I've got a list of those that have gone through the program and end up and losing their lives. I know who they are. I know their names. I keep a list of it because that's what keeps me going. And we have other, like I said, those sad things, but these also. So you have the sad times, low times. We have the great, amazing things that happen too. I tell people, celebrate our wins. Be proud of our work that we're all doing.
And when I talked to Judge Aurora Martinez Jones, one of the things I shared with her on a personal level, as the mom who adopted two relatives when they were babies, were both born positive with those things in their system. And I've had to watch them, now they're 18 and 19, but the challenges that they went through and the challenges they continue to go through due to how those things can really impact a baby, their brain and all of that. And the reality is that you can't really fix those things, right? And so the best thing that you can do is to help mothers give birth to a drug-free, alcohol-free, substance-free baby. That is so important. And the fact is that is a sad story about what happened to her, but it is a win that she gave birth to a clean baby. That is a win and it should be celebrated. I'm appreciative that the grandmother recognized that too. So did we get to the 3 things you wanted to talk about for future stuff?
I hit on some of them. One is be proud. Be proud of the work we're doing. Celebrate our wins. Tell it to the world. Tell them our successes. Secondly, be honest. That means evaluate what we're doing. Use those numbers, those data points to help us do a better job. Evaluation's good. Reach out to the Specialty Court Resource Center. Let them come in and do some evaluations. Find some other drug court professionals that and have them come in and do evaluation. AllRise has opportunities as well. Be a strong team. So be proud, be honest, be a strong team. It's not just the judge, as us judges sometimes think it is. It's the entire team that makes these specialty courts successful. Everybody has their roles, and we need to continue to make sure you have the entire, all the tools in your tool belt by having all the different roles involved in the process. And lastly, just be your best. Every day, strive to make it better.
Thank you. And I always, I end the show with asking for these 3 recommendations. And the first one is a tip. I'm just going to count what you just shared, the recommendations for people. So those are the recommendations. So Judge Phillips, thank you for being with us here today and sharing this information, sharing how the work that we do can just come full circle.
You bet. It's always good to visit with you and your passion and your creativity. And I just really appreciate it. As I shared earlier, us all working together, we're going to make things better. And that's what we've got to strive to do. So thank you so much.
That concludes our episode today. I hope you enjoyed learning how the work that we each do can come full circle and impact a life we may never have expected to affect. Be sure to like or subscribe to our show before you go, and learn more about TASC at tasctx.org.